Hello and welcome to the Voices of Victory channel. I am your host, Mario Leone. Today's episode is When Looking Better Turns Into Never Enough. Yeah, this is going to be a big one that's probably going to smack the social media bee's nest out there just a little bit. And it might shock people what I'm about to say, because we're going to talk about that comfortable feeling with who you are, whether or not you are content. And I have that question for you today. What makes you feel content on the inside with who you are? That is my big question. That is the very big question when people are so central on the idea that they always have to look better. They have to look better. It's not about appearances either. It's not about faking it. It's that they're never happy. It's never enough. It's always more. And we have to look at mental health and psychology with this, because there's this pattern that people are falling into and they don't even notice it's going on. And it starts off pretty relaxed, pretty harmless. You want to look better. You actually want to feel better. You want to present yourself better. You want to be better than everyone else. So you start making small little changes daily. You go to the gym, you do some grooming, you have some clothes, you get some skincare, and you look at all of these hacks and all these influencers that have these beliefs, by the way, that don't always border into very safe places mental health-wise. It doesn't border into that territory of positive development. It actually gets to a point where it could hurt your self-esteem and actually hurt you. And for a while, it works. You feel the momentum. You get the beauty hacks that are out there. You feel like you're in control. But then we actually see something going on inside. Inside the person's heart, we start to see the house of cards actually falling. That they're not happy or content with who they are. There's no sense of satisfactory aspect. They don't want to be satisfactory because there is that inner critic that connects to the comparison culture and everything's going on out there. So it's like, I have to look good. I have to appear better. I have to appear better. I want more. And this is where the ego starts kicking in. It starts kicking in. The ego is screaming, I want more. I need more. I have to have more. I have to look better. I have to look better than everyone else. And the story and the narrative goes in, and they have this mental recipe that they hang on to, this whole concept in their head of, I have this narrative, I must look better than everybody else, period. So underneath, we start to see those beliefs really going down. If I understand and change how I look, I can now feel better about myself because I can change how I look. And to a degree, that can be true, but there's actually more going on with this narrative. There's more going on in the story. At first, it feels like it's a normal deal. It's okay. It's probably motivating. And in some cases, yeah, we can have that little story when we were kids about the ugly duckling. We could have that. It's totally understandable. But over time, we could actually see it in a bigger way, that it can grow to be a larger problem than you actually imagine. Because when people start to say, I have to keep improving how I look in order to feel okay with myself, we start to look at mental health and where they're actually bordering into. So it becomes the price of feeling okay or even satisfactory. The comparison culture, the inner critic and the inner judge that totally kicks off in the middle of the night when you're worried about how you're going to look and what you're going to wear the following morning. So this is how it goes, because there is a little bit of a cycle happening here. It goes exactly like this. You notice something about yourself that you don't like. So you feel insecure. You try to fix it. You try to repair it. You do the gym, the grooming. You style it. You're checking yourself constantly in the mirror. So you feel better in the moment. Awesome. Fantastic. But then your mind has found something else that it has to fix and repair. And it keeps going in that fix and repair cycle. And the cycle repeats. And you're never happy, never content with yourself, because you're in that constant state of fixing and repairing all the time. So wow, when does it actually become addictive mentally? Because the brain starts learning a very solid rule when this is going on. When this cycle is happening, the schema, the mental recipe is being formed. I feel better when I fix how I actually look. that becomes the mental recipe. That becomes the schema. So instead of calming down, your brain starts getting anxious, scanning. What's wrong now? Do I look okay? Do I have enough makeup on? What am I missing? What am I missing? And it becomes this constant void on the inside, this empty space inside. And it turns into this constant, unhealthy self-monitoring all the time. It's not confidence, not true, deep, loving confidence. It's more like never-ending, non-stop maintenance because you're not happy on the inside with who you actually are. So you have to be able to border into the money that is making you fix everything that you want to fix, but there's no limit, there's no stop. It becomes an unhealthy obsession. But it's not that you're being a narcissist. It's actually that you're being insecure on the inside. It starts to get very ugly emotionally. Emotionally. It's interesting how that works. Who would have thought that we can actually become ugly on the inside because of the fact that we're never happy with who we are? So at some point, the effort stops being healthy. And when we start to look at it, we start to look at it in a conditional way. I'll feel confident when I lose more weight. I'll feel good when my fucking skin clears up. I'll be all right. I'll be all right once I fix this one thing that's going on. But the goalpost keeps moving constantly. And that sense of happiness or peace inside isn't there because of the fact it's this constant journey of repair over and over again to try to quench the thirst of the ego that cannot be quenched because you're in a cycle. Your mind doesn't land on, I'm done, I'm okay, I'm satisfied. It lands on what's next, who's looking, who's watching, and what I actually got to do. You want to talk about performative? Yes, performative is there. It's actually there. It can be very unhealthy. It can rear its ugly head. So what it feels like going on emotionally on the inside of you, it looks like discipline and growth. It kind of has that cosplay outfit like discipline and growth is there. But internally, emotionally, guess what? It starts looking different. It starts showing up differently. Never being finished, never being enough. Always one step from okay. Always one step from being content with who you are on the inside. Always one step away from actual true confidence because there's this need for this cycle to repeat in order to quench the ego's thirst. It all goes down to improvement over to the relief from being judged by others or the self-judgment and the inner critic that goes on. So we see this mental recipe in their head and this inner civil war going on inside of them. So it becomes literally a mental distortion because underneath everything is one belief. I have to earn feeling okay about myself by constantly getting in the cycle of doing. And that turns life into this performative behavior, and I'm not happy because of it. So it's not just for other people, but it's for yourself and falling into the cycle of unhappiness on the inside. So the cycle is created, but we have to be able to break it because the goalpost is constantly changing. But the goal isn't to stop improving. It's to separate two things that somehow got welded together at some point. One, how you look, and whether you are okay as a person, whether you're content or satisfied with yourself as a person. But what throws this person into believing that they're not okay is that inner critic and that comparison culture that goes down. So the healthier frame of mind is I can improve myself because I want to, not because I'm not enough. Because I understand my level of being satisfied with who I am on the inside. And that actually matters. Because now the improvement of who you are is no longer a requirement that you have to feel okay or feel better about yourself. You realize it's just a choice. So the real issue was never self-improvement. The real issue was never fashion. The real issue is not the fashion hacks or the fashion influence that are out there. There are people that are looking for solutions to end the cycle, to stop the cycle, but it's impossible to stop when you keep going, and it keeps creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. And once it all happens, your mind doesn't rest. And it's not all about never feeling like it's enough. It's because on the inside you feel like you're too little. You're not content. You're not happy with the person that you actually are on the inside. So you perpetuate this external appearance. It becomes performative, but to the extent that you're hurting yourself. Because on the inside, you're not happy. Your inner critic is going off 80 times a day, creating anxiousness, and it shows up in your interactions in life. It rears its ugly head in your social circles and around you. And then we can see right through you because we see the glamour and the glitz and the fashion and everything outside, but on the inside, we see somebody who's totally unhappy with who they are. And they feel that they can just buy their way into high-paying, expensive things in order to merely buy some happiness on the inside. So what happens with all this? Because at the end of the day, this becomes the unhealthy fashion cycle that absolutely never ends. There's that entire principle that goes on to this pattern, and it really does rear its ugly head. And it doesn't always look like you're insecure at first. At first, it looks like it's taste, it's style, it's okay. I'm just leveling up. I'm just doing the fashion thing like everybody else. And it's okay. It's all right for that. All right, so there's some fashion, there's some luxury brands. It's okay. There's high-end makeup, there's skincare routines. And then there's the constant following of influencers who always, quote unquote, seem one step ahead when they're actually not. Because a lot of it is edited truth and narrative. But there's something deeper going on. At some point, your brain starts to say something. It starts to tell you, if I buy better things, I can feel better about myself. And you get hooked up in that cycle again. So the improvement stops being about the inner stability and understanding your self-esteem and the core essence of your identity. And it starts to look completely different. It starts to look like dumping a lot of money into expensive clothes, luxury brands, makeup upgrades that you don't need, curated aesthetics, and influencer-driven trends that are out there because they say so and a million people like it. We live in the world of edited truth. That is the uncomfortable fact that's going on here. So there's a cycle underneath all of it. And if you know this, it'll be familiar to you. You see some new kind of influencer look, and you feel like you're behind. The comparison culture kicks off, the inner critic kicks off, that schema in your brain that says, I need to look good no matter what. No matter what is the actual concept here. So you upgrade something, an outfit, a product, a routine, a product of some sort. You feel this little lift. I'm excited, I'm getting this, I can't wait, awesome. But guess what? At the end of the day, there's a new standard showing up. It rears its ugly face. And that goalpost and finish line, it keeps moving, keeps changing. Because when we get into high-end fashion, thinking that it's actually going to solve everything, we go far away from understanding the true confidence and depth and self-esteem of who we are, and understanding the level of identity of who we really are on the inside. And that's not demonization of high-end fashion, because it's okay to buy a pair of shoes that you worked hard for. It's fine. But there's a misunderstanding here. People think that emotional pain comes from not having enough quality things. And it's a pitfall. It's a slippery slope. So even if you dump a ton of money and you improve the wardrobe and the upgrades and everything, you get all of that, but you're still not happy on the inside. So your mind keeps repeating the cycle, and it keeps looking at the comparison. Then the inner critic goes off, the inner critic. Now it's, do I look good? Am I enough? Do I look current enough? Am I keeping up? What's the next level here? That's what happens. So we get this influencer effect. Social media totally accelerates the entire cycle that people experience, because you're not comparing yourself to real people in life. You are comparing yourself to what they curate and edit and the schema or mental recipe that they actually show you. You get the highlight reel, the filtered lighting, the curated images, the aesthetics that are totally edited, and how many cuts did they remove in their edits. So guess what? You're in that constant cycle. So your brain starts to learn something. Your brain starts to say, normal is outdated. It has to be outdated. Better is always one step ahead somewhere else. So what this does is it creates a low-level dissatisfaction and internal unhappiness, and it starts to impact your identity. It becomes persistent, not necessarily intense, but persistent and consistent. So you go down the pitfall, and you know what happens? Your brain starts connecting your self-worth to the constant upgrades that you need because of the fact there's the inner dissatisfaction. There's no inner contentedness or true level of confidence. And that can happen. It can happen to very specific people. My heart goes out to you. I have nothing but compassion for you on the inside. Because it becomes that concept of I feel good and I only look good when I'm constantly upgrading my style. And I feel absolutely behind when I don't do anything about it. So this anxiety actually comes up because I don't have the latest and greatest hacks that are out there. So you become a consumer, and that consumption is there to somehow emotionally regulate yourself as well as govern your insecurity that's truly going on. The confidence takes a hit on the inside. Doesn't happen to everybody, but it certainly happens to a lot of people. So this is the actual pitfall that people fall into. Because if you think that buying and changing and upgrading is somehow going to temporarily reduce discomfort, I got news for you. The cycle keeps going. The wheel keeps on turning. But it doesn't resolve what's going on inside of you. It resolves the physical, but not the inner component of being content and happy with who you are on the inside. So there's a real strong truth to this entire pattern. No amount of money is going to complete that cycle until you realize what's going on the inside. Because the issue isn't the quality of this fashionable stuff that you get. That's not it, although some people think it is. But it is the internal rule and the schema, the mental recipe you have on the inside and how you deal with reality. If you have that schema of, I need to keep improving all the time no matter what because my appearance has to always look better than so-and-so and everybody else, and I need those upgrades to actually feel okay. Yeah, that's how it goes. So when that mental rule, when that schema in the brain is in place, then there's always another outfit, another product, another aesthetic, another trend, and another version of better. And there is this trend that's happening right now. Its name I'm not going to mention. But we could look at some of the influencers and ask the truth. And the question is this person actually happy with who they are? Or are they just obsessed? and they're trying to take how they look to a level that's trying to fill in this insecurity that's going on. Because guess what? You're always going to have another level around the corner. But at what point are you going to have a sense of contentedness yourself? At what point are you going to be happy with your identity and who you are? It breaks my heart to see it happen to a lot of people, men and women, not just women, men too. Because at the end of the day, we could look at this goal, and that goal was never really about fashion or style. It was about filling in this empty gap inside of you, inside of your identity, which you're not looking at, because your self-worth somehow got hooked up in and tied to the constant upgrading. But nothing stays satisfying on the inside for a long period, and you may not have enough self-awareness to actually comprehend that or see that or even be aware of that. And please, if you know somebody who's going through this, share this with them and let them know this is not a personal attack. This is a wake-up call. Because we can understand it not because the things aren't good. It's your mind is updating every day, moment to moment, hour to hour, updating what quote-unquote good enough means because of that inner critic and judge that you have and what good enough means. And the measurements, the personal measurements, the rubrics in your head, the measurements, the mental recipe that's in your skull as to what good enough actually means. That doesn't stop. But what does rear its ugly head is on the inside. You might be, just might be, completely unhappy and miserable. And you have to go to school or work every day and put a face on. And it becomes a chore. It becomes exhausting. It becomes work. And my heart goes out to you. It really does. And I hope in some way, shape, or form that you yourself begin to value the true depth and the core and essence of who you really are. You are a constant unfolding. You are growing, changing, and shaping every single day, both physically and internally. You are a constant unfolding, minute to minute, hour to hour. Your skin cells will indeed die and new ones will come in. You are a process. Life is a process. And I hope you recognize not the obsession with it, but the true love and depth and understanding of who you are as a spirit inside. Take care. Don't forget to click the Patreon link below in order to support this. Take care. Have a great day. See you on the next episode.